How is it going out there on this wonderful Tuesday? Today's video is going to be on Charlottesville, Virginia. As I'm assuming most of you out there that are going to watch this are well aware of what happened. I don't feel a need to go through a step-by-step basis of exactly what went down. But it is a little bit poignant, isn't it? About how, well, essentially we've been led to this inevitable end. And I remember not that long ago mentioning how actual neo-Nazis will get a footing if these identity politics continue, and now we have Charlottesville. And this utter shit show is the most hilarious and at the same time morbid thing to happen in the US for a while. Two sides, both based on almost entirely identity politics. They're basically essentially one and the same, just with a different banner, I guess you could say. Although I do kind of have to give the hilarity card to the quote-unquote neo-Nazis, white supremacists, white socialists, the alt-right as they call themselves, with their tucked-in shirts, polos, and nicely done haircuts. All I can say is it looks an awful lot like Hitler meets stockbroker circa 2010, we'll say. But on that note, our dear friends Antifa also weren't entirely absent from this situation either, and their own actions and of themselves do deserve a certain amount of lip service. But if you were to be on the outside looking in the situation 10 years ago, this whole thing would seem alien, foreign, and frankly unbelievable. But this is the world we live in now. Two small extremes fighting, while those of us in the middle just shake our heads and kind of warn about it to begin with. But the Unite the Right movement, comprised of these white nationalists, supremacists, and neo-Nazis calling themselves the alt-right, did have a permit to march. And so until the violence started, everything that they were doing and saying was completely legal. However, once it became violent, the police became active in not only dispersing the members of the Unite the Right protest, but also the violent Antifa. And not all Antifa members, or not all protesters that were counter-protesting were Antifa. Some were just simply people that disagreed with what these people had to say, which is, as long as you remain civil and you don't resort to violence, there's nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, I agree with you entirely. I don't like identity politics either. But moving on. Now, the violence reached somewhat of a pinnacle when a Dodge Charger driven by Alex Fields, an open white supremacist, drove into a group of counter-protesters, injuring 19 people and killing one. With this going down, the depth of the schism was brought from the fringes of society and under the scope of the average citizen. Now it's on national news and it's getting seen by everybody. We're not talking about just the Antifa here. We're also talking about the Unite the Right. This, not necessarily the Unite the Right, but the alt-right and, identitarians on the right side, the ultra-right, as I will call them from now on. It's a more fitting term, I guess you could say. And for the longest time, these two factions, Antifa is well known at this point. They've done enough things in the United States that they've earned themselves somewhat of a reputation, and they're relatively infamous, but the ultra-right is not, I wouldn't say necessarily relatively new, but they didn't have anywhere near the amount of airtime that Antifa had, and now that they're getting it, the question is, what do you do? But at this pinnacle moment, we had to ask ourselves, not only what do we do, but do we want these two groups to represent America as a whole? And in reality, they represent a very small minority amongst the average citizen, because most average citizens, they go to work, they pay bills, they do whatever the average citizen does, and they don't really pay much attention to politics. But with that being said, the the ultra right and the ultra left are a group, and they are gaining momentum, as much as I hate to say that about either of the two groups. And I still do, to this day, believe that Antifa has far more support, mainly due in part to the fact that the mainstream media goes out of their way to specifically paint them as not necessarily violent when they so blatantly are. And with that being said, there was a reporter that was from the New York Times that said, she said briefly in one of her statements that, look at these violent Antifa counter-protesters showing up with baseball bats, and she quickly retracted her statement, mainly probably due to, I'm assuming, obviously I don't have any hard evidence, otherwise I would state I do, but I would say that had something to do with the people on the left kind of coercing her to change her statement. Now, in regards to the death and the injuries caused by the person that was driving the Dodge Charger, I believe, now the police report says that there was no clear indication that it was intentional. However, I do believe from the videos that I have seen and the evidence that I've seen come to the surface that it was intentional, that he was doing it specifically for his own means, and because these people were members of the counter-protest to the protest that he was there not only to support, but probably was also a part of as well. Now, the mainstream media has a kind of reputation nowadays for being relatively, we'll say biased. And when I say biased, I mean heavily biased. But the thing that I find most, what's what I'm looking for? Ironic, I guess that you could say, is that, now, keep in mind, I'm not in any way, shape, or form condoning the ultra-righters, because I don't believe in identity politics regardless of who it comes from, and that's how I feel most people should look at life, but in politics specifically. But that's notwithstanding, I feel like a lot of the things that the mainstream media and the ultra-left have been doing for the past, decade or so, we'll say for the sake of argument, just throwing a number out there, but that these things have led to what we have with the ultra-right now. And once again, not saying that they're justified, but this is a direct resultant of using identity politics. Now, with the statues being taken down, and I think it was North Carolina now, that I don't agree with either, because you can't destroy history, because if you destroy history, you don't have an opportunity to learn from it. So, but also, I understand that with that going down, they have created not necessarily just the mainstream media, but I'm going to say the mainstream media here has created, especially in the United States, has created somewhat of a deep schism between, and the bipartisanship doesn't help either, but both sides, the left and the right, some people that are even moderate left or moderate right just look at the other side as, evil incarnate, which isn't the way that politics is supposed to be handled. It isn't the way that we're supposed to be, isn't supposed to be part of our demeanor, but it is, because of the way that mainstream media has polarized politics. Now, in closing, this violence needs to end. Identitarians, feel free to have your protests and assemblies so long as they remain nonviolent. However, this is something many saw coming. This is the inevitable result of identity politics, and if it continues, things will get much worse before they even get remotely better. Now, with that being said, that will do it for this video, and I will see you folks Thursday with another one. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, and or night, and I will see you later.